Hey guys, Brandon Kowales here, Director of the Salt Lake Community College Concurrent Enrollment Program. And today in this episode, we are going to be diving into our advising program. Now, I say our advising program, it really isn't the Concurrent Enrollment Office's advising program, but it's more of a joint venture between our office and the admissions office. But it wasn't really always that way. So before I go around and I introduce you to some of the folks that have been completely integral in making this program happen the way it is today, let me give you a little bit of the backstory on sort of the journey that we've gone through to evolve our program to the powerful advising program that it is and is becoming today. So really this all sort of began back in around 2014, 2015. And at that time, if you were to step back in our history, in the concurrent enrollment department, there was an advising program, and that was made up of two individuals. It was made up of an outreach coordinator, and that person's responsibility was to go out into the high schools, meet with counselors, and give them training, resources, and information about how they could sort of guide their students in taking concurrent enrollment classes at a really high level, so not down to nitty-gritty details. The other individual was an advisor, and they met with students to come up with an academic plan. Now, the problem that we constantly struggled with back in those days is that the students who were seeking an academic plan were a tiny minority of our students. We're talking a couple of hundred that were seeking that guidance out of 9,000 students. And it really bothered us because if we go back to what our purpose was, to help students to develop the skills they need to be successful in college, one of those skills is to learn how to create an academic plan, how to take classes with a purpose and be strategic so they're not wasting time down the road accumulating all this junk credit that doesn't really help them for anything. And the other thing too is that advisor was advising students for the associate degree. Most of those kids wanted to get the associate degree through concurrent enrollment, which meant the only real option for them in doing concurrent enrollment classes was the associate in general studies, which gives them their generals and a whole bunch of random electives, which doesn't really serve the student. So we had spent some time thinking, how do we reach the masses? How do we not provide academic planning only for that small little minority who are the top academic performers? They got lots of support at home. They're really driven to get college done. How do we expand it out and reach a broader population of students, especially those middle performers that are sort of on the fence about college, to give them the skills they need to transition and complete? So we were racking our brains about that. Over on the admissions side, they had another problem they were running into. So the admissions is where recruiting is housed. So they had recruiters, they also had outreach folks, and they were out there in the high schools working with counselors as well and with students. The issue that they ran into is the high schools would reach out to them and say, hey, I got a question. They say, oh, that's a concurrent question. And then the high schools would say, well, how do we know? I mean, there's like 4 individuals that I need to talk to. Is it the concurrent advisor? Is it the coordinator? Is it the recruiter? Is it who do we need to talk to? So the concurrent enrollment office and the admissions office and the assistant vice president of enrollment management came together and we said, how do we address these concerns? As we were thinking about that, we started to notice something that Weber State was doing. Weber State had taken their recruiters and converted them all into advisors because they didn't at the time have an advising program, and they figured, well, that's what we can do to sort of, get the most bang for our buck and not have to invest a bunch of money in hiring people. So they ended up taking their recruiters, converting them to advisors, and they said what happened is before, when the recruiters would go into the high school, they would show up and say, hey, we're recruiters from Weber State and we're here to get your students to come to Weber State. And the high schools would say, well, that's fantastic. You go ahead and you can have a seat over there and do a tabling event. You can set up your stuff, sell your wares to the students who are walking by if they're interested, and just do your thing. When they became advisors, they would go into the high school and say, hey, I'm a concurrent enrollment advisor, and I'm here to help the students at your school who are currently taking concurrent enrollment classes to make sure they're doing that strategically and with purpose, so that down the road they don't end up impacting federal financial aid, that they really are saving money and time by taking concurrent and not wasting it by accumulating a bunch of junk credits. We're here to help them to do that. When that happened, the high schools their response was totally different. They'd say, wait a second. So what do you need? Do you need us to pull students down? Do you want it individually, or do you want them as a group? Do you need a room? Like, what do you need? Bending over backwards, because what they were adding as advisors was a greater value add to the student right there in that moment than recruiting. So we started thinking about that. And we said, so how can we make this happen within our program, a variation that works better for Salt Lake Community College? We don't necessarily want to replicate what Weber's doing, but we like that idea. So what we ended up deciding to do is take our advisors, our 2 advisors, and move them over to admissions under a new position that was the Assistant Director of Recruitment and Concurrent Enrollment Outreach. So those individuals moved over there, and then also the recruiters were moved under that individual. And so then what we ended up doing is taking, those 5 or 7 recruiters and giving them advising responsibilities and training them on what it takes to advise and create academic plans with concurrent enrollment students. The advisors, on the other hand, were given some recruitment responsibilities and trained on what they needed to do to be effective recruiters and deliver recruitment type presentations. We then took things like the recruitment presentations and the advising presentations and merged them together. We also took other responsibilities, like in how they worked with the counselors. How can we take what our outreach person is doing, what the recruiters are doing, and the advisor, and meld that together in order to create a better value add package for our counselors? And today now we have, I think it's about 7 or 8 advisors. They're all assigned to different schools, and they are a one-stop shop for each of the high schools. So if the counselor runs into a question or a problem and they say, well, who do I reach out to? Oh, I reach out to my Salt Lake Community College representative who serves a function as a recruiter and a concurrent enrollment advisor. We've also worked on creating more of a digital process for advising students and helping them to create academic plans. And we'll go through that most likely in another video because there's quite a bit to go through. But they do that, they do these presentations, they do a whole bunch of other stuff. But I'm not going to go into that because I'll let them share with you what they're doing. So that said, now that you understand sort of the history and where we've come from, where we've been, I'm going to go and introduce you to some of our folks in the admissions office that do the recruiting and the concurrent enrollment now. They're going to talk to you not just about what they do, but they're also going to share some of the struggles we went through, because I'm going to tell you that transition, a major change like that, where you merge two departments sorted together, is not a painless process. And so we hit some bumps in the road, and I'm going to let them share with you some of the things that we learned and that you can take with you as you maybe consider what are some ways that I can sort of partner with folks at my institution to augment what we're doing, which is really what this merger did. Now, with that said, let's go ahead and head over to some of these folks' offices and chat with them and see what it is they're all about. All right, so the first person we're going to be meeting today is Daniel Rodriguez, who is one of our advisors. So I'm going to ask some questions to him about kind of what he does and his roles and sort of how he sees this going. Let's head on over into Daniel's office. Hey, Daniel.
Hey, Brandon. How's it going?
Good. How you doing?
I'm good.
Good. Well, thanks for taking time to talk to us for a minute and share some of the exciting things that you guys are doing. So I guess my first question is about sort of your partnership with high school counselors and sort of the way you guys work with the counselors.
Yeah, for sure. So at the beginning of the year, we went out, met with all of our high school counseling team. We were passing out information, just making sure that they were aware of like any changes that had happened over the summer break, as well as just all of our new upcoming events that we're doing. So one of the big ones that we were talking about was our counselor conference, as well as our multicultural conference. And then, of course, passing out any new updated information about concurrent enrollment, just because, just like us, they're super excited about the program, but there's always so many different changes, so they wanted to know what's happening in that.
Cool. And I've noticed you guys have really good relationships with your counselors in the high school.
Yes, we absolutely try and make sure that we have those, not only with them, but also with our students. So every opportunity that we're able to meet face to face, we want to make sure that they're walking away with a good experience.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Tell me a little bit about now your concurrent enrollment responsibilities, your recruiting responsibilities, and sort of how those are interwoven in some
for
ways.
sure. Concurrent enrollment happens to be kind of the first taste that students are able to get about what we're able to offer here at the college. And so sometimes they hear about an art class that they're able to take, or maybe an English class that they're able to take, and then they get a little bit more interested as to what Salt Lake Community College really has to offer. And so we'll start doing that academic advising, and so it goes back and forth a little bit between am I an advisor or am I a recruiter, but really it's a mixture of the two.
Can you tell me a little bit about the information sessions? Can you give us an idea of sort of what you cover in those, the format, how they're delivered, like that sort of thing?
Yeah, so we do information sessions over at the high school, so we'll go and present ourselves, and we try and make it as a big fun event for our parents and students to be able to learn about what the possibilities of concurrent enrollment courses they can take. Most of the time students have already heard about advanced placement courses, maybe some IB, but they haven't heard too much about concurrent, and so it's our opportunity to be able to go on to their high school campus and be able to say, hey, we have these courses that you're able to work either towards a certificate of completion, so finishing out their generals, or is going as far as finishing out maybe an associate's degree. I think what I'm most excited about is just seeing where we're able to go and kind of shifting the conversation of just concurrent is something that just is there, to really making sure that students are aware of all the opportunities that they're able to take, not only at the high school but also here on campus, and then further on if they want to come back to Salt Lake Community College.
Well, thanks for taking some time with us. I know you're probably a pretty busy guy with all the students you're working with, so I'll let you get back to what you're doing. But again, thanks for
of course. Thank you, Brandon.
Time.
See you.
All right, we'll see you around. All right, so now we're heading into the admissions office. I'm going to introduce you to Kate Gilday, our director of admissions, and we're going to ask some questions to her about sort of this partnership and how that's worked out. So let's head on back to her office. Hey.
Hey, Brandon, how are you?
Good. How are you doing, Kate?
Good. Nice to see you.
Yeah,
Come
you
on
too.
in.
Thanks for being willing to take some time to talk to us and share some of your insights about this whole partnership. So I've just got a couple of questions for you,
Sure.
and then we'll go from there. So first of all, why has this partnership and merger, whatever you want to call it, why has this been important?
I think what's been important is that we've been able to really expand the reach here in the Salt Lake Valley, because we have more staff to be able to do that. I also think it's been really helpful for the schools to have a single point of contact. Instead of in our old model, we had our recruitment team, we had advising, and we had our outreach. And so it was just they could have been working with 6 or 7 people at the school. Instead, now they have a single point of contact, which I think has been really helpful for both of our programs. I think, kind of combining our teams, we're able to do more with the same amount of people, which I think is really helpful.
What advice would you give to others out there across the nation who are maybe considering a partnership like this, or maybe some other sort of partnership between their concurrent office and another department at the college?
The biggest piece of advice I would say is to not expect it to be seamless. Because we had processes that were in place, we had people in place, and I don't think everyone was necessarily excited about the change. But I think that we've been able to sell people on it as we've been able to see some of the successes and the milestones that we've been able to reach with that. But I still think, you should go into it feeling very confident that you're doing the right thing, but just know that it's not going to be easy. That would probably be the best advice I would give.
Yeah. Well, looking back on what we sort of went through, is there anything that you would have done differently, do you think, or that we should have done differently?
I think that the biggest piece is I think that you map things out on paper and you don't consider sometimes the people that impacts. And I don't think that we did a great job thinking about how we were asking so many people to do such a big shift. And I don't think that we did the best job in navigating that. people were attached to the jobs they were already doing, and they very much had an identity. And I think we were expecting people that had an academic advising background to be excited about recruiting, and the people that had that recruiting to really be naturally excited about that. And I mean, it was really big change to their job. And so I think that that's something that I would really encourage people to really think about, is what a big shift it is for your staff. And like I said, I think overall it was met pretty well, but I mean, it just was a lot. And I think there's also things that I don't think that either of us really realized were going to fall through the cracks. Because it's like, our team was already doing this, your team was already doing this, we mixed them together, and there were still some things left on the table that's like, okay, so who's doing this now? And so I just would say go into that knowing that you're going to be finding things that, where does this fit now? Is this a concurrent thing? Is this an admissions thing? Or is it just something that should fall by the wayside, and just be willing to do that?
So the last question is just, where do you see us going with this, down the road, 5-10 years from now, or maybe even short term, a year or two?
Sure. I think the biggest thing is, with campus moving to these area of studies pathway models, if we could really model what we're doing with Concurrent that way, and kind of having those, like, they don't really know exactly what they want to do, but they know they love health sciences. And so if we could always offer the first 5 courses in each of those, I think that would be amazing. And so now I think it would be really great if we could really be strategic in the courses that we're offering that really align with these 8 programs of study. But I mean, again, that would be a huge shift, because you'd need to think about faculty to teach them and what courses are going to fill at the schools, because there's going to be some maybe in those first 5 that might be difficult for schools to be able to run. And then, like I said, we've really been able to shift from doing all of those programs of study to really guiding students towards the Gen Ed certificate, which I think makes a lot of sense. So I would really like to continue along that pathway and making sure that the course offerings really get students to that Gen Ed certificate. And that leads to the long-term goal of, they start here, maybe have 1 year left, finish an associate's, and they can move on to a 4-year. So I think just streamlining it, that everything they're offering in the high school moves here, moves to the 4 years, and just makes that process a lot easier for students.
That'd be sweet.
Yes.
That would be cool.
Do that.
Yeah, we will.
Can you do that tomorrow? That
That's
sounds
right.
great.
Yeah, tomorrow.
That could be running
Okay,
for
well, how about
spring.
today?
Yeah, exactly. But yeah,
Cool.
that's, I think, when I think about what would be the dream, to me, that's what it would be.
That's awesome. Well, thanks, Kate. We appreciate you taking the time
you bet.
and
Thanks for
sharing some
coming.
of this with us. And I guess we'll let you get back to your craziness and getting ready for the holiday break.
Yes, thanks a lot.
Okay.
See you, Brendan.
Thanks. We'll see you.
Take care.
All right, guys. So now I'm going to introduce you to Ilani Clegg. She is our assistant director in the admissions office, and we're going to hear a little bit about what she does and her role in this whole thing. So let's head on over into her office. Hey, Leilani.
Hi.
How's it going?
Good. How are you doing?
Good. Thanks for being willing to take a little bit of time to share some of the crazy cool things we've got going on.
Crazy cool is a good way to put it.
Yeah, that's right. That's right.
Yeah.
Okay, so I've just got a couple of questions for you,
Sure.
and then we'll let you get back to what you're doing.
Okay, sure.
But the first thing is just tell us a little bit about what you do, what your role is, and your responsibilities.
Okay, yeah, my role is the assistant director for admissions and concurrent advising. So we actually have 11 recruiters here, including myself, so 12, that are in the admissions office. And of the 11, 7 of those are dedicated to high school recruitment. So all of that consists of charter high schools and our mainstream high schools, as well as alternative high schools. And they also work with some youth that are incarcerated, which is awesome. So they're able to help on a broader scale. And part of what they do, and a big part of what they do now, is actually providing academic advising opportunities for students that are taking concurrent courses, as well as sharing what it's like to be a concurrent enrolled student in the high school when we go there to do career and college access presentations and events that are hosted at the high school. So it's been a really good opportunity for our team that way.
Cool.
Yeah.
And you've been here since this transition occurred, that concurrent enrollment advisors joined your team, and your team took on some of these concurrent enrollment responsibilities. Can you tell us a little bit about that transition and how that all went? I mean, there were some great things and there were some really rough things as well.
Sure. Sure. I would just I would say that it was pretty much a hot mess at the beginning of time. And just there's a lot of resistance always with change, and I think that just looking at the opportunity to bring in something new and truly use it as a tool, but better yet, use that opportunity to present more resources and opportunities to students as an overall blanket, was something that we didn't see when we first started. I think just as we added things, it became easier and easier. And so the more tools that we add, and as the future holds more opportunity to add more tools and attend conferences and just become more immersed in what Concurrent Enrollment offers, it provides that piece to our advisor team to just be more confident in what they're saying, and the change now is just common ground. It's just what we do. It's no longer just like this other thing we do.
And how do you feel like things are working now? I mean, we fast forward from that rough time to now. Like, how do you feel like they're running now? Where do you see us going?
I think what's great to see now is that it's kind of taken off in any direction that the schools want it to, as well as keeping ground. As our structure right here internally goes. I think having those opportunities allowed us to also then take those information sessions into the mainstream high school and say, look, this is what's happening. And I'll just pick on Murray High School for a second, because they're awesome too. But I didn't attend there, by the way. They're just awesome.
This isn't a plug for Murray.
It's not a plug. But one of the things that I appreciated so much that they did is that they had their sophomore session where all of their sophomore incoming folks that were coming to school the next year in the spring of last year, or this year, I guess, they offered a really unique thing there, and they let them come in and talk to different teachers and courses that were offered at the high school, but they also had concurrent information, and we did one of those concurrent information sessions there and really broke down all the things that were offered there at Murray High, but also offered throughout the Granite District, Jordan Tech, as well as on our campus. So the things that might be of interest to them that they could do, and it really sparked a lot of interest. We had over 300 plus students and parents, I just counted the students, attend a session there, which that's our largest one still to date that we had of attendance. But I look at that and I think that in and of itself is what the future holds. The more experiences that we can present to them, the more they see themselves here, and the more they want to be a part of what we have to offer.
If you were going to give some advice to other programs out there that are considering these sort of partnerships and these sort of changes, I mean, looking back, what would we have done different, and what would you advise maybe other people who are beginning this journey to do?
To do, I think, number one, communicate what their vision is up front, and to all those that it affects. So especially those that are going to be out and working through the process steps to get their understanding of what they feel would work best. So we could really better gauge with them and work with them and set up a plan with them so they don't feel so alone in how they're starting. I think that's what I would recommend to anybody to do.
That would have been lovely if we would have done
a little more of that.
Really
awesome.
Yeah.
Communication's amazing.
That's right. Well, thanks for taking some time to talk to us, and I'll let you get back to your wrapping up for the holidays.
Yeah. It's time.
Okay.
Right?
Thanks.
Thank you.
Thanks, Leilani.
Thanks.
We'll see you.
All right. We'll see you.
All right, so hopefully that's really got the juices flowing now, got you excited about some things that you could do to partner with different people, organizations, departments there at your institution to be able to really enhance what it is you're doing, whether that's advising or whether it's what you're doing with your instructors or with faculty liaisons. There are lots of different ways to partner and magnify what you're doing. It sort of goes back to this idea of it's not about resources, it's about resourcefulness. I mean, we're all in some way resource poor, but we are all in other ways absolutely resourcefulness rich. There is an abundance of opportunity all around us if we'll just start looking at it differently. We'll step out of that box and look at things a little bit differently. And when we do that, we find that there are all sorts of ways to augment what it is we're doing or what we hope to do simply by partnering with other people. Now, I had mentioned earlier in the video that that we have these electronic systems, web-based systems for for providing academic planning for students. I'll go over that in a later video. But for now, we're just going to leave it at sort of what we've talked about so far. I want to invite you to go ahead and post down below the video any comments, ideas, suggestions, questions that you have, and share with the broader community.